So let me ask you this, if everyone could agree with me, where the recreational facilities assessment, okay, what page does it go to? Doesn't mean we can't discuss it, but, I'm wondering if it would best be tabled to when Jen is here after she's
It goes
affirmed.
to 138.
Oh, good, we could just like
Yeah.
plow through this meeting and adjourn right now. I'm
No, it
joking.
goes to 138.
Okay, so. Okay,
Pretty,
And some of this we actually have already tackled
Right.
in the form of the town common and the making things compliant going forward for
Right.
concrete crosswalks and pathways through the center of the common. They're now going to be brick, so.
am I also correct in stating, and using airport as an example, that certain equipment has been moved, and that even though it's an open space for kids to technically play in, all the functional playground equipment has been removed from that park? Am I correct in that?
I'm looking, I don't know.
Okay.
I kind of feel like what you said has merit to speak to what you said about maybe moving some of this. Maybe she has read this, reaching out to her to see if, this has been provided to her. And
Well, she is actually familiar, when I had spoken with her a couple months back, she was familiar with this, document.
Yeah.
And she had mentioned, that once Grafton Celebrates the Holidays had been over, that she was going to digest this document, and then, we could then bring her in for a discussion.
And I think that one of the things that we had mentioned too is just discussing things overall with an eye towards service provisions as well, and accessibility to programming, not necessarily just the physical compliance of things. And I think that there's a lot of information we don't have.
In other words, being proactive, instead of just using the data on the deficiencies, actually be proactive and have a more meaningful discussion as to what programming needs to happen through that department.
Right, like
Okay.
what plans are there, if there are plans for adaptive programming for, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of really great things going on. If you read through their, like the catalog and everything,
Right.
things that are accessible, but I
Right.
definitely feel like having viewed it, that there are questions I would have for her about accessibility to those programs.
All right,
And I would like the opportunity for her to consider that,
okay,
I guess, before she is asked to sit in front of us, like, that might be the first time she hears our question
right.
regarding it. So would it be maybe a good use of our time to maybe make a small list of questions we might have, or general questions, and then
Yeah,
plan
because this
together?
alone is,
I have a
like
suggestion.
50 Yeah, Daryl,
Just thinking big picture. So I think we really need some kind of a workshop because it's very hard to sit and organize all of this stuff without having like an actual working meeting.
right,
And so we still don't know, what's been checked off the checklists. So we need to assign things to people. We need to get an organization to it. We need to, like we talked about priorities, and we can't really do it at a meeting like this, but we can certainly present our work at a meeting like this.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe we should have a workshop. You know,
and it's funny you should mention that, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth, because I know that we've been having these meetings that have been going 2 hours in length,
yeah,
and the nature and extent of these topics, let alone the whole budgetary question of it,
right.
with everything going on in
Well,
town.
and we can't even get into that at the moment, but
Right.
we can lay it out because no matter what, some of this has to get done.
Right.
I mean, for the townspeople in Grafton.
Right,
yeah.
And the budget, too bad we didn't have it done before now, but
right.
we still have to lay it all out. And with like, what are the state's timelines that are in here, right? We have X amount of time to get this done, or is it
These were
The
the,
town, I mean, has X amount of time.
well, I think these were the timelines set forth in the ADA self-eval and
Yep.
transition plan by within, I think, the parameters of the Center of Living and Working.
Right.
But I'm not aware one way or the other of whether there are state mandates regarding timeframes once a town does have a self-eval done. That maybe the Center for Living and Working actually, bless you, whether the Center for Living and Working's recommendations on timeframe was simply mirroring a state mandate. I don't know the answer to that question.
All right, but I still think we need to, I think it's good that we've assigned pages to read and
Right.
become familiar with. That's gonna be very helpful in a workshop. But we gotta chunk this off and
I know.
get
Yeah.
some
We
kind of
talked about
a,
this last meeting.
organized format.
process.
And we don't even have the schools yet.
I can
So-
speak to that later.
So,
Yeah.
Alright.
On top of that, the schools aren't on there either. So.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll speak to that
well,
when we get to
and did I see that on an agenda? I've been cruising school committee agendas and I thought I saw they were implementing soon an ADA eval. No?
Do you want me to speak to that now, Roger, or would you prefer that I wait?
I would,
It's up to you.
yeah, if we could hold off a minute, and I will double back and make sure that Donna is still with us. Donna, are you still
Yes, I
there?
am. Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you have any input which you'd like to provide regarding workshop, regarding tackling the recreational facilities piece aside from the entire document itself?
No, I'm fine. I think with the idea to get it organized and to, perhaps assign some of these parts to it would be a good idea.
Right. She said that she felt it was a good idea to, assign parts to
Yeah.
different folks and have a workshop. So,
So let's get one
So
on the
like
books.
subcommittees that report back to that do work outside of here and then discuss things and vote on them in the meetings.
no,
what
workshop
you're
would be a
talking
it would be a workshop meeting. It would be an,
I mean, it's still an open meeting. We have to post it.
Okay.
I don't know if I have to take copious notes during it, but it's a working meeting. It's a little more relaxed. We probably wouldn't have it in this room. And we would work. We
we're
would-
nuts
I'm
and
all for
bolts.
that. If we
Yeah.
want to vote on that, I'm totally support that.
or we could simply agree
Yeah.
to
We can just agree that we're gonna
yeah,
do it.
and I don't know what. We could be concerned about where to find a meeting venue after the fact of agreeing on what days and dates during February are best for us. I don't have actually I do have a calendar here, and as I'm looking at February,
Is anyone going away for February vacation?
I'll be away for the 14th to the 17th. But
Okay.
I'm not going to go away for.
actually. So our meeting of February is scheduled based on the third Thursday would be February 20th.
And that's the meeting we hope to invite Bob Berger to, because he's the point person on
Right.
so much of this.
And were you hoping to invite Jen at that time as well?
I'd actually sent Tim, Becca, and Bob an email summing up some of our talking points that are reflected in our minutes regarding doubling back, whether or not they agree with whether they agree with all of the findings of the eval. In other words, we've taken it at face value that everything there is accurate and stated, not only that a deficiency exists, but at the priority that the report has assigned to it and the price range. And some of these price ranges are pretty wide. Having sought out an opinion as to the price range of these identified items. Now, I know that we had talked on one hand about the low-hanging fruit, which is sort of the easy peasy stuff, a lot of which could be done with internal resources and a lot at zero cost. But we also talked about the importance of the priority one items. And I don't think we have identified the cost or estimated cost of those priority one items, as well as broken down by building. My own thought is that, let's say theoretically, we tackled all the priority one items and money weren't an issue, even though money is an issue. I wouldn't want it to be a hodgepodge. I would want to see the most prominent buildings, the most highly used buildings taken as a whole, and you tackle all the priority ones in that building before moving on to the priority ones at another building.
I think we talked about too at our last meeting that there are things that were not included in the report that might be a lot less of an undertaking than some of the physical difficulties with the, with our, what we need to correct. Like again, that's to go back to it. There are in some areas, in some of these buildings, the service related, programming issues or website issues or things that we can, and when I think low hanging fruit, I think of those things. The, looking at the websites for various, like, maybe I'm not singling anybody out, I'm just randomly without any data behind it using the library as an example. Is there something about the library's website? Again, we love you guys, I'm not singling you out.
Right.
But is there something about that could be more accessible, about, to go back to the school department without opening that can of worms fully, is their website accessible? Is programming accessible in other ways for, like, the children's programming or some of the, whatever it is it all accessible? Those are things that without breaking ground, we can maybe start to implement or maybe start developing working relationships with some of the individuals that are in this, and then maybe that would make it
Or like Board of Library Trustees, for example.
right.
or the
Yeah. So
library.
so then we have a relationship with them that
Right.
we can then use to a better, later
Right.
on when we have to go through this heavy stuff, we've already established a relationship
Right.
with them,
And-
and these
and I-
other more achievable goals,
Right.
less expensive, I'm assuming, in a lot of ways, goals. It might be a good place to start, and it's also where our report is light. So, to your point about the report not necessarily being like the gospel,
Right.
maybe we need to address that, fill in the gaps and the questions we have in terms of programming and service delivery in other ways other than the physical components of it, and
Right.
use that as the low-hanging fruit
Right.
where we
Right.
can.
And I
Because some
think,
of it doesn't apply to every department, but just where we can.
right, and I think my frustration has been that we meet just once a month, and
Right.
those working meetings are very important, and,
I love
will-
that idea.
I will do my darndest to build extra time to have those workshop meetings. I think that our first year will be really crucial, in really knocking off a lot of these items, and moving forward. I had emailed Tim. He basically, all right, so as a commission, we don't need, the town's permission to speak with other boards and committees. But as far as department heads, I had spoken at our last meeting about, those people who report to Tim. And he basically said, if you are requesting time of a department head, just request time, email them and CC me. And if he sees some type of, conflict, regarding, competing interests, or time, rather.
But the subject matter is not of concern, it's the time.
It's a time. In other words,
Okay.
I had mentioned in our last meeting that I wanted to put the brakes on a little, and just at least acknowledge that those department heads report to him. And as a commission, I wanted to, I was pointing out that I was particularly concerned to be mindful that we can't expect these people to just, be at our beck and call, okay?
Right.
And so he basically said, yeah, just, send out the communication and then CC me,
Yep.
just so he, just so he's in the loop.
And actually, procedurally, if we're all going to get assigned to speak to different people, we definitely have to vote on it and agree.
Right,
That's what I was
Because we're representing
right,
the
True.
entire board
Right,
when we
right,
do that.
right.
So,
Right. So then, to clean up some of that and tie it up together in terms of action tonight, are we saying that we want to make some changes to the way that we approach, like you had mentioned, maybe chunk pieces off and be able to approach them in a more granular way so that we could not be doing it all at one time in the hour and a half that we're here.
Right.
Right.
And then, did we want to, at this time, talk about who would be representing possibly, or some ideas about who might be willing to take on some of this, or be the best fit for interacting with some of those groups?
I mean, we could certainly talk about that and chunk it out. Okay, I don't have a list of every, committee or department or department head in front of us to really make sure we're tackling all of this. What were your thoughts? As far as,
So-
I'd like to see that kind of done at the working meeting.
Yeah, I was thinking it's a little
That's
bit
a
much
lot
to
of
be
work.
just done
Yeah.
in one.
Yeah.
I would like to see maybe laid out on paper the structure. What are we actually dealing with? Let's put everything out on the table,
Right.
spread it out and be like, okay, so we have the school department, we have the recreation department, we have some things. And again, like we said, there'll be some crossover, so it's important for us to have those conversations. Like, for
Right.
example, I have a lot of background with the school department, but in terms of recreation department, I may have some input because we had discussed years ago with Jen that maybe, we, meaning CPAC and myself personally as a citizen
Right.
of Grafton, maybe somebody donating some curriculum from the school, and we, just loosely had conversed about it. So we may have some areas where we're not necessarily experts, but, and we're all volunteers here, and I'm not saying everybody's an expert, but areas that we might be able to offer the most. And I think being able to have that conversation at a time when it's not rushed is going to produce the best results. Like, you know what I mean? I don't
so
think,
what would the agenda look like at this workshop?
Workshop agenda?
Yeah, what would that look like? You've been through this more than
have.
I have, so.
So obviously it would look pretty similar, except for it would have a general item, which says, I mean, it depends. Are we gonna tackle the first 20, whatever chunk we would write exactly what we were gonna do.
Okay.
Probably 3 items, open, what we're doing for work, and close.
Okay.
So it's not a big,
it would be specific to the area of discussion, right? I think in terms of what the agenda would look like,
Right.
because I think it
yeah,
would be
I mean, we're gonna prioritize, I'm writing organize, dissect, and prioritize the self-evaluation.
Right.
So that's
Right.
really the work that we're gonna do,
Yeah.
because we can't really do it here. We
Right.
need to agree on a format, like what does it look like? I mean, I definitely don't mind pitching a few, because that's what I do for a living.
Okay, all right. We just need to be mindful that after this meeting, that it becomes a challenge because we can't agree outside of a public meeting on the, on a.
Sure,
like-
we can agree in a workshop, that is
No,
a
no,
public
as far
hearing.
as the subject matter of.
Oh, you mean like when we break it up?
we
That's
need
why I
to-
was asking if
We
we
need to
should
agree
do that
tonight.
now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To
on what
some
the agenda-
extent on what,
Yeah.
on at least the restructuring piece of it, and then maybe throw out some ideas as to who might be best for some
right.
of this or volunteer.
Because one of the thoughts I had was the timing of this is, although we're not really getting into budget discussions, I think we could all agree that we now know that we're in the thick of, the upcoming fiscal year discussions, in addition to the possibility of an override ballot vote real
And there's
soon.
more to that department. There's other things that are due upcoming as well for
Right.
certain departments that it would be timely to discuss them sooner.
So do you think this workshop meeting, due to the timing either of the workshop meeting or our next planned meeting on the 20th?
So I was gonna ask does it have to be on the 20th, because
No.
that is vacation week? I mean,
Okay.
I'm willing to come in and do a workshop that week, but I'm probably not gonna be here
But that would be,
for the end of the week.
but that would be our routine our third Thursday meeting.
I know,
Are you-
and I'm throwing it out there.
I'm fine with whatever.
I'm just throwing it out there. It would be something we would have to vote on, is to
Yeah.
move the meeting date,
Okay.
the next meeting date, and we would have to vote on a workshop date as well, so.
Okay.
I think restructuring prior to that meeting would make the best use of that meeting time.
But you're right, that's gonna move the room and,
I,
So
I,
Roger,
we would have to check room
What was that, Donna?
I know that I have a commitment. Our Board of Trustees is in on the 20th, so I would not be able to attend that day either. So I'd be open to having it rescheduled.
Okay,
I'll have to look at when the CPAC meeting is without it right in front of me.
Okay.
For February, but
What did she say?
Can we try
I
for the
can't hear her.
13th?
can't make the 20th.
Donna can't make the 20th. There's
Yeah,
a
and
select
so
board.
there's two.
Yeah, and that is vacation week.
Bob,
we-
can you hear Donna?
Can I hear her?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes. Yeah, I'm putting myself on mute so you don't pick up any feedback here.
So if
Can I
we,
address the commission?
Sure. Do you want to come up here and either in one of these mics, all the mics are live?
so when you come up, you have to introduce yourself and name and address and all that.
I'm Robert Perla. I live on Providence Road in Grafton, 121. I wanted to speak to the subject that you addressed about the ice and snow removal
Oh, please.
at the Common. I used to be on the Common District Commission, and I wrote the guidelines for the town, for the Common. In the guidelines, it says that the sole responsibility for maintaining the sidewalks, entranceways, and the parking lot resides with the owner of the property within the Common. So when we're talking about the library, that would mean the sole responsibility lies with the library via the town of Grafton.
Right,
So I just wanted to share that information with you.
right. Okay,
That's very helpful.
thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perla. And, yeah, well, so I'm not gonna revisit that other than to say that my own concern about living in New England is the freeze thaw, you know? Clearing things up and then it melts and then freezes over the next 2 days and so. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Perla, for your comments.
So could we try to come up with a workshop date?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
I'm basically free each day of the month of February during the evening.
I just have those 3 days that I'm not available in the CPAC meeting, which I'll have to look up the date for you.
Okay.
I'm hoping we could schedule the 18th, which is a Tuesday,
All right.
of vacation week.
All right.
Doesn't have to be in the evening. Can be if people are free. I don't know how many people are on vacation. You probably aren't, Christy.
I'm not. No.
And I am.
I get spring break in March.
Well, we can do an evening. That's fine.
Okay.
Does that date work
The
for
18th
everybody?
works for me. How about
Don-
you, Donna?
It does work for me.
What day did you say?
It's
Tuesday?
Tuesday, February 18th. You don't
So
have
that is the CPAC meeting. But we had discussed moving it to the 25th, our meeting, which we had not agreed to do yet. I would have to.
Okay.
I would have to do that at our meeting on the 21st. I could not do that now.
So are you saying that are we discussing moving our regular meeting or having
no,
a?
we're
Having an
having a
additional
workshop
workshop
on the
meeting.
18th.
Okay. So does that mean then we are not having the 20th?
Well, not necessarily, but
Okay.
Can
Okay.
we possibly pick another day besides the 18th?
I move we have a workshop on February 18th to organize, dissect, and prioritize the self-evaluation.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made by
I got it.
Daryl and seconded by Christie to have a workshop meeting on February 18th for the purposes of organizing, dissecting, and prioritizing the self-evaluation.
Okay, and I can certainly address with the CPAC, the moving of the date,
Vote on it.
but I can't commit to that without a vote
Okay.
at our meeting.
Okay. And what time were you talking about on the 18th?
It's up to you guys.
All right, as part of the
Do I
motion.
need to add that to the
I
motion?
think, yeah,
I don't think the time, well, whatever.
I mean, are we,
6
Seven's
o'clock,
fine.
is that too early?
I was gonna
If we're
say,
gonna
can we
take a
go a
few
little
hours?
earlier, like 6:30?
Yeah, that would be great.
okay,
Give us time to kind of really work into
okay.
some of the things here.
All right,
That's why we do 6 o'clock at CPAC, because our meetings typically run 3 hours, you know.
all right. And any discussion on the motion?
Just that what I'd said about
Okay.
needing to
Yeah.
revisit with
Okay,
CPAC on the 21st,
okay,
I can certainly put forward the concern, but we would have to vote to move the time
Okay,
and the day of the
Okay.
meeting.
all right. So in other words, so you wouldn't necessarily have an objection to having our meeting on the 18th? It's just,
I would
you're not,
prefer it to be a different day personally, because of the previously established date.
okay,
I think it's confusing for parents to move dates around. It affects their ability to attend, but if that's the date, then I could certainly discuss with,
Yeah, we could do the 19th.
I'm free on the 19th, for sure.
is Donna, are you free on the 19th?
I would not be.
Okay,
Okay,
so,
so,
one of the things that happens is, we recognize that not everyone will
Right.
be
well,
at
there's a
every meeting?
possibility for it, so
Okay.
let me bring it to, you know,
You know what? I think your point is a good one. So you really don't want to change that on the parents.
right, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking more in terms of like a parent sees that, you know,
Okay.
maybe in January, they're looking ahead to February and they want to attend a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
When we move things around, it might be confusing for them, but again, that's my input, and everyone here has, you know, the same.
What days typically during the week are difficult days? I'm free
I'm
the entire.
flexible except for that and the 14th through 17th.
Okay,
Yeah, for me it's Tuesdays because I'm teaching a class right now on Tuesday evening.
Okay.
So right through March. So I just can't
all right,
bend that.
okay.
And I'm booked Mondays and Wednesdays, but I can make an exception, so.
I can make any night of the week work unless I have a CPAC meeting or I have some other, which is it would be unusual for me to have something else in the evening.
All right, and who had difficulty on Wednesday? You had difficulty.
Yep.
Donna, I know your select board schedule is, what is it, first and third Tuesday, typically?
We've been meeting, especially in the budget season, 3 Tuesdays of the month. So
Okay.
usually the second, third, and fourth.
Okay,
They moved to school committee night.
pardon?
What'd she say?
Second, third, and fourth of the month.
Right, in other words, because of budgets, they've added a third meeting.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember those days.
yeah. Saturdays in March on FinCom. That was brutal. So what day then, if we're not going to do the 18th, what day, Daryl, would you?
I mean, we could do the Wednesday, then the 12th, Wednesday the 5th. Oh,
Alright.
except for that's hard for Christy.
Oh,
Wednesday.
No, but I can try. I can make an exception.
I mean, I would prefer to have a workshop before we have our next meeting.
okay.
Yeah.
Is the evening of the 17th okay? Because I could do an evening meeting on the 17th, but just the first half, 2/3 of the day, I'll say, is not good for me that day.
I'm good with that.
Are you okay on the 17th?
Yep.
Catherine? Are you okay, Christy,
Yep.
on the 17th? And you're okay on the
I'm
17th?
okay so long as it's after 5 o'clock.
Okay. Donna, are you free on the 17th, a Monday, February 17th, a Monday for a workshop?
Yeah, that's a holiday, right, though? But I am available.
Oh, wait
Okay.
a minute, that's
Oh,
Oh,
wait
yeah,
a minute.
that is a holiday.
President's Day.
Oh,
I
so,
don't know what our
Everything's
rules are.
closed.
so everything's closed.
Everything's closed, we can't
Right,
get
we're
in.
all available.
Oh, okay. That's why we're.
That's,
That's why, of course.
let's meet at noon.
Yeah,
Bushel and back.
12, so you were saying the,
19th then. But
No, you're-
Donna couldn't.
The
so-
19th, the
the
12th,
12th.
the 5th.
the Wednesday, so
I could do
including, all right, Donna, the 5th or the 12th on a Wednesday, are either of those days,
Those are good.
all right,
I'm good with that.
is everyone else the 5th
Yeah.
or the 12th?
Whichever.
All
The
right,
5th or the
Yep.
12th is fine for me.
12th is good.
all right, so are we agreed, that,
Where the
Daryl's motion in the second is for the 12th, substituted from her initial motion on the 18th by
So we're-
consensus?
We're agreeing on the 12th then, if we agree for that. That's the date we're talking about?
Yeah.
I second or third, wherever that,
All right.
wherever we are with it.
All right, so no one has any
My 2
objection,
cents
all
in.
right, so, so the motion then, that's on the floor is for, February 12th, Wednesday at 6:30?
Yep.
All right,
Okay.
for a workshop, all right, any other discussion on the, motion on the workshop for February 12th at 6:30?
I just would like to clarify the purpose of our meeting a little bit, if we can. We are meeting to, what is our goal?
All right, well, the
Not
motion.
making an agenda, I
right.
just wanna kinda just,
In the motion by Daryl was to organize, dissect, and prioritize the ADA self-evaluation.
okay.
Is
So,
that sufficient? Does that
Delegate
provide
to
sufficient detail?
potentially delegate, areas of responsibility
Right,
to individuals within the commission.
I mean, that could result in it, that,
Potentially, you know,
Yeah.
just to discuss the potential for, you know,
And as the person who really has the town's authority to answer to this document, would we be inviting Bob Berger to this meeting?
we could certainly do that.
we could.
Because that may be our one time to really get him for a specific length
Mm-hmm.
of time.
And that will give him time to further review the document and,
Okay.
and refamiliarize himself with the document to be able to address whether there's any discrepancies in his opinion regarding the priority or the cost or whether the deficiency exists.
And we could pitch how we're thinking about
handling.
prioritizing and organizing.
And I would add to that any gaps in where there are some areas that are not explained in any way. Even amongst the areas that a review was done, like for the departments that, or the different areas, there are things that are clearly missing.
Right.
Again,
And I think that
give
that
us
would
a
be,
service.
I think that would be included in the dissect
Right.
portion of the motion. Organize, dissect, and prioritize the self-eval and delegate areas
Potentially.
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 I mean, I personally don't think we're gonna get that far, but.
Okay,
We're
gonna try.
Yeah.
Yes,
all right,
Okay.
all right.
good.
Any further discussion on the motion for the workshop on the 12th at 6:30 to organize, dissect, and prioritize the self-evaluation and potentially delegate areas?
Just that I think that it would be helpful for us to obviously come
Yes,
prepared, but to
okay.
come prepared with,
Yep.
having read this, our input as to,
Yep.
you know,
All right,
be fully prepared to discuss it in a more in-depth level than we've been able to kinda with the structure we currently have now, right? Like, does that make sense?
yeah, I think
won't
that
say
goes
we haven't
without.
been doing,
I think that goes without saying
Yeah.
that this kind of ramps up our
Yeah.
our game. if we
Bring your A game.
Bring your A game. All right. So, any further discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call. Donna Stock. Donna, you there?
Sorry, it's on mute. Aye.
Okay. Daryl,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Roger, yes. Christy,
Yes.
Missy.
Yes.
All right. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Okay, and so I will see you on the 12th for that workshop. I'm looking forward to it. To just
Yeah.
tackle a lot of
Bring
these
food.
items.
Yeah.
There you go.
And we're still gonna meet on the 20th.
So it's still on the
I mean, we can, except for you're gonna be down Donna and I on the 20th.
Okay.
Which it bugs me that I have to miss another meeting.
okay.
Do we wanna take an opportunity to move that meeting to make it more able, is there
Should we
Right.
try for the next Thursday? The 27th? How does that work for you?
Is there? Does anyone have any conflicts on the 27th or objections to moving our regularly scheduled meeting of Thursday, the 20th of February to the 27th of February? And we can even move the time back from 7 to 6:30. I mean, I'm flexible.
I'm okay with that.
I mean,
Yeah.
is Donna?
Works for me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So do I have a motion to move the February 20th meeting to February 27th at 6:30 PM?
I'll move it.
All right, Missy, motion
Second.
made by Missy and seconded by Daryl. Any further discussion on the motion?
No.
Hearing none by roll call. Donna?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Roger, yes. Christie?
Yes.
Missy? Yes. All right, I declare the motion carried unanimously, so we'll move that from February 20th to the 27th at 6:30.
27th at 6:30?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you for going to 6:30.
But I think it's a good time.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Moving
so
on.
I'll have to see about an available room and available TV. I know that Jack has, right now, we're scheduled for TV time too for the third Thursday of every month, so I'll check into that schedule.
So then you're gonna be reaching out to them to let them know that we're changing our times and everything.
Yes, in other words, I'll reach, it goes without saying that I'll rearrange and get a meeting room. And that then frees up any other committees or commissions to
Use the time that
use
we had
this,
previously.
yeah.
Okay. So where are we?
You demand.
Okay. Okay.
We are on 4.
Okay, draft minutes of November 21st. Okay, hold on one moment.
And it came out to be only 1 page. Oh no.
No, it's 3 pages. Okay. November 21st, draft Disability Commission meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to scan them again, if I could.
Okay. I'll,
Wait for me to scan there.
sure, I mean, we could,
Only people who are here can really.
yeah, that's true.
Was that
Now you go
November?
to
Oh,
vote.
I'm
That was
sorry.
November, right, so
I
you would,
thought for
you
some
would
reason we were
recuse
talking.
yourself.
I'll recuse myself anyway. Well, that makes it easy.
Yeah. So the only technicality I see is that on page 2, where we talk about the old business,
Yep.
second paragraph, we will get in touch with Jen Anderson from, it says Parks and Recs. I think that's a TV show. Our department, I believe, is just called the Recreation Department. Okay, I just,
That is hysterical.
so, yeah.
So what I'm going to do is,
That's exactly how I wrote it.
I know. I love Amy Poehler too, but I'm pretty sure technically we need to put the Recreation Department.
okay.
Well, sometimes we do have a comedy show in town.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is, I'm gonna ask for a motion in a second, then what we could do is, agree on the motion with the recommended changes.
Yeah.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve the, November 21st, 2019 minutes?
I mean, I'll motion.
Okay, Daryl, and, I'll second. Okay, and, with the agreed upon change where, what,
Page
So-
2, paragraph under 5, old business.
yeah,
The second paragraph has Jen Anderson's name,
yeah,
and it says Parks and Recs.
okay. So that should just say Recreation Department?
Yes,
Okay.
totally true.
Okay. Okay, so, all right, with the exception, all right, so with the understanding that, Parks and Recs will be crossed out and will be substituted with Recreation Department, is there any other discussion on the motion to approve the November 21st minutes? All right, and it's understood, Missy, that you will abstain? because you're
Right,
not
yeah,
present.
I'll speak to, December.
Okay, and so all those in favor by roll call, Donna? Actually, wait a minute, Donna was
Abstain.
absent, all right, so she,
Abstain.
I'm sorry, yeah, she'll abstain. Daryl,
Yes,
Catherine,
Yes.
Roger, yes, Christie.
Yes.
Okay, by a vote of 4-0 and 2 abstentions, declare the motion carried to approve the November 21st, 19 minutes. Okay, December 19th, 2019 minutes. All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of December 19th?
I'll motion.
All right, motion made by Christie to accept, approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Catherine seconded. And, discussion, I'll pipe in here. It was kind of comical. We don't, it's not in color on my, it was like in this bright turquoise, where there was sort of a quasi note to self, Christie.
Yeah, I know.
She said, Roger, we forgot to review and accept the meeting minutes from November. Please put this on the January meeting agenda.
Yeah.
There
Sorry.
is something missing from here as well.
All right, so that's just sort of like a reminder. One thing is that, although it was a funny read, at the time of the December meeting, the November minutes were not yet completed. Moving forward, even if I know that a certain set of minutes isn't completed, I'll just consider it a best practice to include it on the minutes, even
Yeah.
though we know we're going to pass over.
Yeah.
So it's always in front of us.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds
Perfect.
good.
yeah. And then the other item, on, page 2, you were looking for Bob Berg's official title. It's Inspector of Buildings.
Did you also want me to put in Town Compliance Officer? Because for the purposes of our commission,
Okay.
I didn't know how long
Okay.
you wanted to go. That was my only question before
Okay.
Okay.
So is it ADA compliance officer? I don't know if there's an official title aside from his job title within town, that his role is also,
Right.
Somebody said that. Didn't I put that in our minutes?
I put it
too?
in your, yeah, I saw it in your minutes, Daryl.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also seen it in other,
Compliance officer is what he's been called.
okay. So are we in agreement that we put Inspector of Buildings and Compliance Officer so people know the scope of his responsibilities?
yes.
Okay. All right, so. Oh, and the other thing, and this is more of a formality, I don't know if it really needs to be voted, but I think it should be, well, it should be added, well, first of all, this is that certain format that includes, all the headers of the town in a similar fashion as we, put the agenda together. And, any subsequent pages, I believe, of minutes need to just sort of restate on the top,
Oh, the header.
like the date,
Okay.
and continued, minutes of whatever.
Okay.
I'm getting the look.
You are getting a
I'm
look.
getting the look. But, and then, so
Joe-
at the bottom of that, respectfully
Donna?
submitted. Donna?
Yeah.
Did-
One minor edit, Daryl's name is spelled wrong in the absent members.
Oh. Oh, okay, thank you, Donna. Daryl, is one R.
Right.
That's true. I was just gonna let that go.
One thing missing from the minutes is that I shared information about the school accountability reports that are due. I'm not sure if that was specifically mentioned in there. I didn't see it.
I don't think I went into that specific detail. We just discussed the school.
Okay. There was a couple of different reports due. One is the ADA self-eval. The other one that was not related to us is the school accountability plans, which I read the summary. And
Was that under new business? Because I do have
it was towards the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I have that you're going to ask Laura Offen, what is the status on current services and the accessibility of the school buildings and property? Yeah, that was that discussion where you were going to ask about that report.
Right. So yeah, so we did talk about that. We talked about, so this is not incorrect what's here, but I think because there are a couple of different reports we're talking about, it should, and we did discuss specifically, we should at least mention the ones that we had discussed. So that way we can
And are
reference
they
some of
and
them.
are they our reports though?
Well, not, so
Because aren't we asking them to give us some status about those reports?
So this report that one of them is the ADA report, yes. The other one, superintendents will need to consider input from parents, special education, English learner, parent advisory councils, and other stakeholders like the school committee, teachers, and school improvement councils. And we had discussed, as disability commission, that would be relative to us as well, because that one specific report, we just wanted to see, where we were at with it, we had discussed.
Okay, so we're being asked to give input to a report for the school committee. I just want to make
No,
sure
we
I
were
get it right.
asking what the status was of their,
Okay. The status on current services, I'll put a comma.
right, and I am gonna speak to some of these things later, having reached out.
And can you tell me the name of that again?
It was the school accountability, I can't even say accountability.
Okay.
School accountability plan,
The school accountability plan. Okay.
right,
And what else?
that's part of an education funding overhaul that was signed into law
Okay,
last year. We
I have a-
discussed that
I
last
have a
time.
question about
we don't have, I'm going to interrupt for a second regarding a procedural matter. If, Catherine Christopher, all right, so we do have, all right, I thought there were only three present. I apologize, in looking back, I was thinking that we didn't have enough people that were present that would we could have a sufficient number of votes
Last time?
to approve these, but we do. In other words, yeah, you, Christy, Catherine, and myself, okay.
We did have 4.
Yeah, yeah.
That was why we,
Yeah, and so Daryl and Donna were not, present, okay.
Okay, so again, going back to under new business, the sentence will read, what is the status on current services, comma, the school accountability plan, comma, and the accessibility of the school buildings and property, question mark.
So, can I ask a question?
Sure.
What is the school accountability plan? And what does that have to do with this?
so what does it have to do with this meeting, our commission? So the school accountability plan is, there was an education funding overhaul that was,
Yeah.
so the schools have to demonstrate, part of this is that this new law is the schools have to demonstrate their willingness and ability and efforts to work with disabilities groups in town. So that's where we fall in, that's where CPAC falls in, and that's why we would be interested in that.
Okay.
So that's, I can,
So to see that they're in compliance or what their plans.
so that people who are part of the discussion who need to be a part of the discussion are part of the discussion.
Okay.
Is what, and I can certainly, reread the section, like the little brief blurb about it, so to kind of give you a, because you weren't here last time.
Did you bring it here last time?
I did read it here
Oh,
last
okay.
time.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And
So
I,
are we.
that's okay. So, I can, well, I'll pull it from an
don't
article if
have
you want
to
me to
read
do it, but what it is
what?
basically that they're discussing the Chapter 70 funding, and they're discussing how do schools interact with different groups, English learners, parent advisory councils, and I would say as well, Disabilities Commission is a part of
one
all
of
of
those
them. Right, it would be one of those groups as well.
And one of the things I'll mention is that if there's any agenda item you have, as I'm putting the agenda together, even if we don't delve into great length on any of these things, feel free to ask that I put, like, let's say there's a document, a reference document, even if we don't jump into the details of it, it will now be memorialized in our meeting packet.
And that's why I want just the name of it
Okay.
put into the minutes, because we did discuss it as, there's a lot of moving parts right now.
Right.
There's several different reports and reviews that are kind of due more or less around the same time.
Right.
And I think it, again, discussing them all would be timely in terms of like how
Okay.
they impact everything.
Another workshop meeting.
Well, that's a big that's a big, and I have yet to provide my, my update as well, which I'll save until you're ready for it.
Okay, so, are you okay then with the,
So she was reading it and I interrupted. So it was school accountability plan.
Right.
Services.
but what
No.
happens is she took the minutes, so she's going to,
I've already amended it, Daryl.
so
Yep.
she will submit these set of minutes.
I know, I'm just listing.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Good.
So it's page 2.
Under new business, first bullet,
Yep.
first sentence, but second half of the first sentence. What is the status on current services? And then we're adding, comma, the school accountability plan, all capitalized, comma, and the accessibility of the school buildings and property, question mark.
Right. I'd like to just really quick read a short sentence to her, just so she can be, okay, so this is part of a law that was passed as part of Charlie Baker's education funding overhaul. So, and via CPAC, I'd shared this and personally shared this, this information to where it needed to go, but superintendents will need to consider input from parents, including special education and English learner parent advisory councils and other stakeholders, such as the school committee, teachers, and school improvement councils in preparing their 3-year plans. Under the law, the plans will need to establish targets and measures for addressing persistent disparities in achievement among student subgroups. Identify evidence-based programs districts will use to reduce disparities. Outline how Chapter 70 aid and other money will be used to implement the plan, and specify efforts to engage families, particularly for families of low-income students, English learners, and students with disabilities. So, again, timely in that we have a lot going on with that right now in various aspects of it, financially, with the disparities. And I'll speak to that at my moment when it comes time to speak to that, but that's why I brought it here, because I felt like we are one of those stakeholders. This commission is a stakeholder in that, because we represent those individuals with disabilities in our schools, as well as other individuals in the community.
Yeah, I don't know if I understand if that's part of our charge for this particular commission, but I will look into it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just saying that
'cause I
we
don't-
mentioned the report
Yeah.
in terms of,
I know that there are I'm sure that there are certain parameters and legalities which define, what lies within the scope of the schools and the school committee as an executive board to sort of address certain things. I will simply acknowledge that it was a pretty huge brush that was painted regarding our charge
I
by
know,
the select
it's
board.
so big. I
Right.
know.
And maybe it's $2,000, or maybe it needs to be scaled back. That may be a discussion for another day, but as I reread the charge of our commission, there's not a person or business or
right,
individual that isn't touched by or wouldn't be part of the scope of our work. And
Right.
I mean, to tackle it all, it would be like we could potentially be meeting every week, you know?
Well, my point was
But
just to
not-
put
that's
eyes
not
on
feasible.
this.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like an action item, like
Yeah.
we need to do something. It was just that this is something that we need to be aware of.
Yeah.
And that we need to be aware of in relation to the other things that are going on. Like, again, notably absent from the evaluation, the ADA self-evaluation is anything from the school department.
Right.
And,
And I wonder why.
well, would now be a good time for me to address that, or did you wanna?
Well, let's,
Well, we're on the
we
meeting,
need-
we're
we need
right now,
to
we're on
vote
the
on
meeting
this.
Yeah,
minutes.
we should.
So vote on
this
the
is
minutes? Okay,
longest
so let's-
Open.
Yeah. So, other than that, I have no issues with the,
Okay.
minutes, just the inclusion of that,
okay. Got it.
All right,
so we
so,
can vote on that and then.
all right, so, understanding that, Daryl and Donna will
With
be
those edits.
abstaining, but, I'll just memorialize the abstention. With the recommended,
edits.
with the edits, by roll call, Donna
She's abstaining.
abstaining, yeah, Daryl
Abstain.
abstaining, Catherine,
Yes.
Roger, yes, Christie,
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
All right, by a vote of 4-0 and 2 abstentions, with the recommended changes, declare the motion carried for approval of December 19th minutes.
Okay.
Okay, old business. Mass Office on Disability Municipal Grant Application. We did not get it. Okay? We did not get it. December 31, dated December 31, but received in the Select Board's office on January 7th, was a letter from the Mass Office on Disability thanking us for submitting the project grant. It was addressed to Assistant Town Administrator Rebecca Meekins. So this FY20 round of the Municipal ADA Improvement Grant Program, we had requested $50,000, and it wasn't awarded, and that the letters will be going out shortly as of December 31 to those communities who were awarded. It acknowledges that the details of the FY21 application process will be provided online in early of July of next year, but since this was dated December 31, they're referring to 2020. So in early July of 2020, there'll be another round, and so,
They say why we didn't get it.
no.
Okay.
I know,
No,
I wish
it didn't, but I will say that we kind of, as a town, we kind of hedged on this because the money had been previously appropriated. The money's there. This will get done. And so we were hoping to sort of get that money and then maybe use whatever other monies were appropriated and continue, funneling that into other projects. But I think we may have even, if I recall correctly, in the grant app, mentioned that part of the funds were there. So, I don't know if that kind of worked against us, but, they didn't say one way or the other. I won't speculate any further.
Just that it was a nope.
No, but I will say that it took us 2 times to get the initial grant for the ADA self-eval. So, we were told no on that piece, and it took us round 2 to do that. So, so maybe next time around, with whatever project we put in front of them, starting in July, we may be approved for some or all of our requests. So, so that is the status there. Accessible handicap parking fines account. Donna, I know that we may have attempted to take this up in a prior meeting, but I think you may not have been around. And I think there was
So the
6.
money that's there is the only money that's available.
How much?
The money that's there.
Okay.
How much?
Was it
Because we
600?
don't have the, yeah,
It was 600.
we don't have the personnel necessarily to monitor these as often as they can, so.
I'm sorry. What was that again, Donna?
I said they don't have the personnel necessarily to monitor these as often as they would like.
Okay. All right. So, So it's possible that maybe in past years things may have slipped through, but we, I think as a commission, had acknowledged that there was no existing commission or active commission to vote for recommendation of this spending. So I guess we'll simply move forward on this, knowing that we have $600, and knowing that I think it's the town accountant is required to annually provide an internal report and a report to the state on the status of that fund. So I guess we can move forward on in monitoring the monies that come in.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Donna. Contact with Grafton School Committee, Missy.
Okay. So I reached out to Laura Often, as we discussed at our previous meeting, that I would, and I'll just read the email to you. Hello, Laura. I hope this email finds you well. Disabilities Commission would like to invite you or another member of school committee to discuss and provide us with an update regarding the ADA self-evaluation of the schools. Would you be able to attend our meeting this week? I tell her what our meeting is. Look forward to hearing from you. And she immediately responded to me. Thank you for the invite. Let me confirm where we are with the study, and I'll get back to you ASAP. And then she emailed again that day to say, thanks again for reaching out. We are still in the process of the assessment and would like to be able to provide a more complete update to the commission once the assessment is completed. I'll be in touch. Now, to that, to address that, I kind of feel like, I have questions about that assessment. Is it an independently contracted assessment? Because my understanding was there was some internal assessments happening, and I'm not sure what the requirements are, if it's required that it's independently performed.
Yes, it is.
So I'm not sure that that's what's taking place. I was not clear from that conversation. So I would propose that we request more information, even though it's not completed. I would like to say that I think it's a good opportunity while it's in process to address some of the things that the previous reports lacked. Again, that service provision and programming questions that we have about some of those other areas. We could maybe pose some questions.
So
To
you're,
that
are you
end.
saying, Chris, about the
Whenever
independent nature?
You have to have it done independently.
Right.
Okay.
And
You
I
can
was not
do,
clear.
you can do a self-eval,
Right.
but if you're going forward with any building or anything specifically,
And that's section 504 as well, is it
right.
not?
And then, you can always technically have a quote planning document. That's really what you need, as long as you're working towards the goals that are set forth in the planning document.
Like
You
a
should be
strategic
worked.
long-term
Yeah,
plan.
you should be okay with things. So moving us forward is, even just with this is a huge step forward. But if there is a self-evaluation conducted by a school on itself or a school department, it has to be a cross-functional team. And, there should always be someone from the outside looking in as part of
Right.
that team.
That was not, I was not of that impression that was,
Yeah.
my understanding, was that there are some internal evaluations happening regarding some of the programming. But I'm not sure that's linked to this.
So we're not sure whether
Right.
it's,
I'm not clear as to whether or not it is, that this is being independently performed, or if it's something the school's doing independently. I'm aware of other internal reviews in this arena, but I'm not sure, I'm not clear at all what's going on with it.
so Missy, and I'll ask the commission as a whole, but with the focus on, Daryl and Donna having previously sat on a school committee, I'm not sure whether you mentioned programming, from a facility standpoint, buildings and playgrounds and such, would that fall under the municipal, even though the buildings are occupied and used by the schools, and the kids, as well as the playgrounds and the grounds, does that fall under the school department to include that in the self-eval, or would that fall under the municipal? if you've tackled this before.
We have to answer this carefully because it's been a long time.
Okay.
So yes, the school department would be responsible for initiating getting their equipment up to date or compliant or whatever. But of course, that's a capital expense.
Right.
It's not going to come out of the operating budget. It's going to come out of a capital expense, or groups can raise money to
Right.
help the schools.
But the group,
Bring 'em up
the group identifying the need or deficiency is the school, regardless of how it's funded. The
I mean, typically, parents could do, the CPAC could identify the need for it as
All right.
well. So, all it would take too, really, is a parent saying, hey, how
Right.
come this
And
isn't
to
compliant?
that point, to bring it back to that other report that I was talking about being able to reach out and interface with those parent groups and everything. I'm just not sure, without even getting into all of that, because a lot of that's speculation. I think what we need to do is we need to ask some clarifying questions as to what they have in mind and the direction that they're headed with this, so that we can understand where they're going with their. Because from her email, it seems that there are some
I mean,
evaluations underway, but I'm not sure who's doing them. I'm not sure what the scope of them is. I've not asked, and I think we need to ask some more questions before we can move. We can really know what's going on. I guess. That's
Do
what
they
I'm
have
saying.
this as an agenda item anytime? Have they, well, first of all, have they had it as an agenda item recently? And are we aware of whether this is planned in the near future to be an agenda item?
I cannot speak to the school committee. I can tell you that CPAC has had this as an agenda item several times last year. We've discussed
on my phone, so I can't
program
find out
review and compliance with the new dyslexia. Like, there's a lot of things we've discussed that filter into some of this. But again, in terms of our purpose here right now, in using the other reports as a model, because I have nothing else to go off of, I would just really, before we speculate, and believe me, I would like to speculate
Right.
on this subject, but because I have a lot to say about it. But just to keep it focused, I think it's more like I really want to reach out and say, could you please tell us the scope,
Well, and I don't think,
where are they, so we can get a baseline read essentially, and then when we have that baseline read, we can then discuss it. Perhaps whatever our reorganization is going to be, but as Disabilities Commission, in whatever capacity we decide we're going to do this, because it's a huge topic, I think it's important that we discuss it with what's going on, in terms of expenditures and how Chapter 70 money is being spent.
And Daryl, you were going to say something about?
yeah, this is getting big.
I know, it is, it is.
But here's the good thing, and this is where I think we can narrow back in. And Donna, correct me if I'm wrong. I really go back to the operating budget and the cost and the lines and who they're reporting to under the expense accounts for the town. I'm sure we as citizens, and anyone can do this, can bring to anyone's attention in town for any building, for any venue,
Yeah.
that there's something that is not accessible, whether it be private business, the school, whatever. But it's not our place as a commission to force
Right.
someone to do that. We can suggest, we can cite law, but our motivation should really be to really be as accessible as a town, and hopefully people will value that, value people, right?
I agree with that.
And so when I hear that, we're talking now about a school playground, I think, it's great we can provide a resource, but I think ultimately that responsibility goes right back to the school, because they're the ones who are, and their line items and their budgetary processes, their procurement processes, their bidding processes. I mean, we just kind of are on the sidelines. And so I just want to make sure we understand that it's great to know what's going on at the school. We can definitely support it. We can We can actually be on part if they were to ask us. We could be part of an evaluation or an assessment plan. But I just don't want to get in the way of the
Right.
school getting this done by April 30th. I hear some deadlines. I know they're all working hard. I don't want to belabor anything that they're trying to get through. Let's just be careful with them because we're the
Yeah.
new kids on the block and we don't want to step on any toes.
Well,
But-
and we're advisory. We don't have authority.
right,
So
correct.
we
Right.
don't have any authority.
Right. And I had said at the outset, and I think this, outset meaning when I first came before the select board to remind them that, and remind the town that this commission hadn't been functioning since 2011. I had specifically made the comment that, you know, we weren't to be the disability police, that
Right.
if people are looking upon this commission, as that role, then it could tend to be adversarial, and that's, we want to draw people into the discussion.
But I think in making people aware of what's going on, including the school, is an important first step to getting things done. And I
Right.
think that there's a tendency when there's so much to be done for people to be defensive about the inquiries. I think that's human nature. I think that when, like a group such as ours would go to an organization that's dealing with all this
It's not loading at all.
overrides and money and emergency, there's all
meeting,
sorts of
and
things
it's
going on. Not to
goes to a
oversimplify it, but
Right.
to say, and I think that there's a tendency to be defensive regardless of how it's presented. So I think that our goal should simply be to gather the information correctly, whatever it is, to make sure it's accurate, and to present the data in such a way that they can then utilize that information to do the best thing for the community.
Right.
And I think that is my intention in terms of wanting more clarity on where they're at with everything.
And I
'Cause
think you're in a
it's
unique,
relevant.
and you're in a unique position that regardless of what we may wish to vote on or not regarding having you further delve into this, so long as you're not representing the Disability Commission, CPAC could certainly push the envelope as it so chooses regarding this item. On,
Because you're
to,
directly related to the school.
Right, and
Right.
yeah, so I mean, we
And
we
CPAC.
have our own involvement with this, but I
Okay.
do think in terms of our commission, I think it wouldn't be inappropriate to ask. I don't mean an inquisition. I mean an ask like we've asked previously, like, hey, like a very friendly, hey, Laura, and I have rapport. Could you give me a little more information just to understand where you're at with this? Not, I demand to know who's doing it. I demand to know. Like, I'm not saying we do that. I'm saying.
so what
we
are
just
you,
kind
are
of,
you looking
know.
for, like timeframes and when
No,
it's
not
gonna-
necessarily
okay.
right now. Time frame.
Or the scope of the
I'm more interested to know, because we had discussed some deficiencies in the previous report. I think this would be a great opportunity, while it's still being done, to take the information that we have and help another department who's actively working on this to say,
Right.
hey, like when we were going through these other reports, we noticed that there were some things that were not in there that we thought maybe would be more helpful to know. Like, for example, like when we talked about the recreation department, and there was not a lot of information provided about the accessibility of their programming. Not like the actual programs, not just the fields and the equipment and everything. Right? So
Yeah,
I
we
think
talked
that
about
that would be a really good, and remember that ADA covers section 504, and that is a huge piece of what's going on with the school department. There's a lot of people on a 504 plan. So I think it's important for them to just be able to have the information so that they can make decisions that are informed decisions.
So,
and, that we can help facilitate that.
So as a
information.
commission, if we were to okay you following up with her, what would that look like?
What would the content of that email look
Yeah,
like?
or what would, or how, because sometimes these discussions can take on a life of their own. I would be,
Well, what would you, in reflection of what I've said, what would your questions be?
I mean,
I'll ask you.
I would want to know, who's taking the lead on this? Is it Dr. Cummings that has a document or a rough draft in hand, based on existing or prior reports? And then he's,
But why do you want to know that, Roger? What's that going to change for you or help? I mean, I'm not trying to defend.
Right.
I want to stay clear on what our mission is. For me, if they said they're conducting a report, and they'll get back to us
When it's completed,
when it's completed, because it's none of, it's not, I don't think it's our business to tell them how to do it.
well, it's not telling them how to do it. What it is providing our input to them in a way that would be helpful to them completing it on their own independently. Does that make
Well,
sense?
but I think the school
An
department,
advisory role.
well, I think the school department is aware of this and this particular document and how it's
So
structured.
would you ask them, like, how could we be helpful to you?
So we could certainly lead off with that and frame out like, so we would like to obviously assist you in any way possible with this process. Could you I'm not sure where the tenderness is in it, because I feel like asking this question is not demanding anything.
Would it, let me ask you this, would it hurt anything to sit on this for a month?
I think it would.
In what way?
Because I think that when we're discussing all the other discussions that are going on right now, I think that it would be timely to identify some areas where maybe funds have not been allocated and need to be. And like, for example, with the dyslexia legislation, and this is just, I'm not sure if that falls under 504 for some kids or if some, certain things. And one of the questions that I had for them was, have you guys considered that with the new dyslexia screening laws, with 1 in 5 kids known, the statistics being that 1 in 5 kids are dyslexic, have you accounted for the support that, the projected for that support? And things like that. Those are the kind of questions that I have, not are you doing,
And so this goes back to our very first meeting. So Donna, you'll remember this, Catherine. Okay, I'm counting on all your memories, okay? We remember we said, we have this self-evaluation and it never included the schools. So we were really disappointed it didn't include the schools. So until, today, I didn't know they were doing their own evaluation. So, prior to this, I think 2 weeks ago, I said to Roger, let's get a budget and put money in so that we can request a school plan, because these plans are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Now let's finish what this started. Let's get some monies, if it's approved at town, to the town meeting to do a school plan. So if they're already doing a school plan, well, we don't have to ask for those monies. But
Right.
I just want to know what is the scope of the plan, because what if they're only focusing on elementary schools?
right.
But we could ask for money to have another plan done for the secondary schools. Or what if they're only focusing on one aspect, and that would just be, which is the easiest, to be honest with you, the architectural access
Right.
versus the informational digital website presence of all of the school system.
Right.
I mean, that's why I think I want to know what their scope is, only so that we can use that information, not really to help them or anything overtly, but to help us in saying, okay, so for the next for the next fiscal year, for the 21 fiscal year, let's ask for funds so that we can have a self-evaluation plan written up and done by an outside firm, again, for just the school
Yeah,
Right.
portions that weren't covered by this June 2019 plan. So that's the only reason I kind of wanted to know
The
what
scope,
the
I mean,
project,
that's
yeah.
really, that was my question too, is what is the scope of your evaluation? And, how is it being, is it, who's doing it basically? I mean, not who specifically, but kind of, is it an independently, generated plan, like an outside, or is it an internal plan? I think those are very important, and I think that they are appropriate questions to ask.
But I have no,
Right.
that's the only, I'm not that, I mean, I'm thinking more for our sake,
yeah. No, that,
in planning, because
Makes sense.
I'd love to put a budget line item together for our commission to ask for the town's money and support in getting this done sooner rather than later, so, for the schools.
Right.
So that, in other words, knowing that information would help us formulate the scope of our recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
if it is discovered that, like you said, like maybe they're only doing like the physical, like we could then maybe say like, hey, like there's this other component that really is relevant to our community that needs to be, the scope should include that, and that's,
Yeah.
I think that's
And that's where we
within
could
our,
help.
that's within our realm to say something like that, should that occur, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was going with it.
And even
That makes
even if we don't delve into it in a major way, in the same way that our commission signed off on and voted for the brick pavers project with the community preservation committee, we could certainly be involved in assisting them in backing certain requests.
Right. And again, in all areas of kind of where I feel things, identification is critical to a positive outcome. So that's something that if we could help facilitate that in any way, that we would be contributing something meaningful.
Okay. So, does anyone have any objection to Melissa continuing that discussion and what that should look like?
I mean, we could sit here and draft that
I-
together.
And right now, I
Perfect.
just want to be mindful that it is 8:40,
Right.
and we still have your CPAC presentation and then another
Right.
new business item. Just quickly touching base on the
Right.
town report that's due in February.
Mine will be really short.
Well, let's just continue the email. Let's just have a follow-up. If Melissa could have, our support in asking Laura, often from the school board, the school committee, excuse me, to just provide just some general information that would help guide us as we're looking at proposing getting funding for a self-evaluation to cover aspects of the school department that weren't covered in this last plan from June 2019. And I know I'm being very verbose and long, but it doesn't have to
No,
be
I
that
want to
long.
make sure that when I'm
Actually,
reaching
those
out,
words
that
are
we're
good.
in agreement with what's being said.
So general information that will help
Yeah.
guide us. Keep dictating to me.
Okay,
Yeah, because I'm going to take a picture of what you wrote, and that's what's going in my email.
Yeah.
yeah, could we
That's
just
what I did
have
last time.
Yeah.
a general information, so, oh, shoot, Daryl.
That will help guide us.
That will help guide us as we look to request funding for a self-evaluation and transition plan for the school department that would complement the June 2019 self-evaluation and transition plan, which covered, now I'm getting verbose,
Now you
which
can-
covered the rest of the
I think
town.
you're speaking too quickly. I think you're speaking too
Okay.
And I think you want
General
to say,
information that will help guide us as we look to discuss funding for a self-evaluation of the school department.
School of the school, we can say of the school department that would complement the self-evaluation that was completed in June 2019.
Okay.
And then if you can put in parentheses, that it covered the fire, police, historic buildings, town
there a web
building,
link
you
where
know,
we can maybe just
everything
provide a
left
web
in the
link to
town
it?
that wasn't, yeah, you know.
and we did want to ask, I guess, as well, if the report was, did we want to ask if it was independently generated, or is it an independent report, or is it a self-evaluation?
I'm gonna
you wanna say
I'm
this
gonna make
here?
a big assumption here as someone who manages budgets. I'm gonna assume that it was done
Okay,
because what we're looking at here is probably $40,000 to $50,000 report. And I'm gonna guess that the school department didn't have the funding as a line item for that large an amount. I mean, I didn't see it come through.
No.
So I'm gonna guess and they have a lot of folks who are experts in their own domains who can,
right, and they should
Do
say, but then they
this.
should say that as to
yeah.
what's going on.
But you know, but ask if it was an independent or if it's prepared by an outside specialist or inclusion specialist.
So if you could read that back, Daryl.
Hold on.
So, I'm sorry, did you want to include that, or no? You do, okay.
I mean, is
That's my feeling as well.
Something we would ask when it was presented to us? Or right now? Because what if they say, well, whatever they say, we'll just take what they say, because we'll have comments after it's presented, and then we know what we have to help with funding.
Yeah.
future.
Just say, is
Right?
it being done independently or is an outside business or nonprofit conducting the study?
Right.
All right.
And it may be that gathering that information and presenting that, you know, just like I just read this email, someone might be watching this and saying, okay, well, maybe I should email and ask, you know, people in the community
Well,
can do whatever they want
this,
with that
this won't be on
information.
TV for a few days. We're not live.
Yeah,
So,
but whenever, I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, they might, you know, just informational to know.
so let me know, Daryl, when you're finished with that. I'll ask you to read it, and then we'll simply vote on proceeding, and then we'll move on to the CPAC agenda item. Then I'll ask people to kind of have a blank memory about any other old business. And then we'll move on to new business. I'm gonna try, I'm
Actually,
gonna
I
try
kinda
knocking
hope
this
I'm
off
outta here
before
by
9.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so, help, motion, okay. Oh. This is not all done. A motion that will help the Disability Commission. No. Can you give us general information that will help guide us as we look to discuss funding for a self-evaluation of the school department that would complement the evaluation completed in June 2019, the town evaluation completed in June 2019, and then in parentheses, list areas of town that were covered. And second question, is it being done by an independent firm or by the school department?
Okay,
Or
That's great.
otherwise done internally.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good,
All
Darren.
right, so
I agree. I
with
think
the
that's-
understanding that that's, Missy Lackey communicating with Laura Often.
Right. We had on the last agenda a question about, communication with Laura regarding the possibility of asking for a school committee member to act as a liaison to the commission. Did we
We-
want to include that in our communication this
No.
time as well?
No, I think that's
We'll
an entirely
their
different,
minds.
yeah, that, I think that goes off topic,
they've
but
got
it's a good thing to double back on.
Bigger issues
So
right now.
motion made by, who made the motion?
Initially, it was me to
Okay.
email
Okay.
to follow up.
Second,
Yeah, Donna?
She
I said I
motioned.
second the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
All right. All right, motion made and seconded. Okay, and, for that communication, by
Right.
Melissa to Laura Often. By roll call, here, any other discussion on the motion? All right.
No.
Hearing none, by roll call, Donna,
Aye.
Daryl,
Yes.
Catherine,
Yes.
Roger, I, Christie.
Yes.
Melissa.
Yes.
Yes, okay, declare the motion carried unanimously.
First and second on that, I'm sorry.
First
Melissa,
was Missy.
Melissa, yeah, Missy,
Donna.
and then Donna was seconded on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, Melissa with Grafton CPAC updates, special ed parent advisory, is that council? Does the C stand for council?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, it does.
so folks know what CPAC stands for. It used to be called SPEDPAC.
Right.
Okay,
So our meeting is on the 21st, and we will be meeting again. I'll say I said at the top of the meeting, but I'll repeat that location again. It is at Millbury Street Elementary School on the 21st, 6 p.m.
what day of the week is that?
It's a
It is
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah, it is actually almost always on a Tuesday. So
And what time, 6?
6. So let me pull my agenda up real quick here because there's a couple of things there worthy of mention. So, any communication we've received via the Grafton CPAC email or from anywhere else officially, we will bring to the meeting and we will discuss that. We have a continued discussion after that of child find early identification. That's something that we've been working on as an initiative as part of our strategic plan for the year.
Okay.
And also last year as one of our areas of focus, helping the district and our families to facilitate that early identification and satisfying the child find mandate in any way possible. And helping our educators to do that. So that's something that we'll be discussing. The big show really is the presentation on reading instruction in Grafton Public Schools. There are some questions that we had posed to the special education department regarding reading scores, special education students. There's some deficiencies. There's some significant deficiencies in our special education department, our students in that area, and as well as general education. There are some areas that we feel warrant some acknowledgement and discussion. And we posed several questions to that department, and in response, they agreed to, they offered to provide a reading presentation by Lisa Rice, and that will take place at this meeting.
Okay.
We're going to cover Tier 1 intervention, the new dyslexia law, and regarding screening and how that will be implemented. Some other districts have already begun to really roll out intensive plans for that. We are not clear as to the depth of planning and where we are with that, so we'll be asking questions as to where we are with that, and I think that's going to be a really important piece of this. And again, asking what their strategic plan is for, and what areas they feel they can improve, and what areas they feel like they're really performing well in. Just like a look at what everything is going on, and just an opportunity for parents to voice their concerns and for the literacy coordinator to address them
Okay.
in a in a public forum like that. I think it's going to be helpful for us to, to be able to kind of work together on that.
Now, as far as the prior minutes and everything, I know that you had a recent request for minutes. Are those minutes now on your web page? You had mentioned that you were that CPAC was going to revamp its website.
Right. So currently we are using the Facebook page
Right.
for our communication. Also, we went out and spoke with Grafton Common, and they posted all of our minutes, so they're available right now online. We posted them with the town. We have our.
So where in the town website are they?
So I am not 100% clear as
Okay.
to where they put us, because the story with that is that prior to me taking over CPAC as the chair the
Right.
past 2 years, and the other individuals who are kind enough to volunteer with me, CPAC was largely a group of very dedicated and wonderful volunteers who mostly worked together to put together the Everyday Heroes program. But prior to my minutes being submitted, there are no
Okay.
records, and I have confirmation of that from the town clerk.
Okay.
So,
But it's not technically part of, it's a mandate that a CPAC exists,
Yeah.
but it's not
So-
part of the town or the
Usually
school.
usually the school's homepage, the
Okay.
district homepage
right,
has
so
a
what
CPAC
we
link.
would
should
bring
be
to,
there.
and I can't speak to it as but we haven't voted on anything, but it is something that we discussed asking officially
Right,
for them to be
okay,
posted in that space.
okay.
Because the
Because I think
previous
people will
website is
want
now
that.
part of that old guard that
Okay.
is no longer, although, they've been available for conversation, it's just not been a part of the,
So where is the agenda posted for next
With the town.
Tuesday? But you don't know where on the town, but it's not the school website,
no,
It's the
on the
town's.
town's website.
okay,
It should be through the town, so we have to, post it through Candy, like everybody else
All right.
does, and then we get confirmation, and it's
okay,
stamped, so, we would definitely, like, one of the issues we have is that we don't have the manpower to run all of these,
but it would be
Websites
good
or
to have I mean, sooner rather than later, to have an official repository to send parents and people in the community to, if they want to read the agenda and minutes and have
No, I fully agree with
one-stop
you.
access, okay.
Right, no, I fully agree that.
But
we
right
need to
now
get the
that-
website Up and running.
that
That is
doesn't-
something that we are working on and
Okay.
we've been discussing at
Okay,
in terms of our outreach.
okay.
And we are looking for some volunteers, if you know anybody who knows how to
Okay.
run a web page or build a web page. Currently, we have a very strong web presence via Facebook. Anyone who's seen our posts knows that. I think Daryl mentioned earlier that she had been following our posts.
Okay.
So we do have a lot of community engagement in that area. And Grafton Common has reached out to us to ask if we would like to do a semi-regular column regarding educate, what what it's like to live as a family with special need, individuals. And, this is the year where we've seen the most engagement.
Right.
So now the questions we're starting to ask and the way that we're reaching out is finally starting to
Okay.
have an impact. So last year we still, reached out to people, but this year we're seeing a lot more engagement with everything. So I think right now, in terms of your question about the minutes, everything is where it should be.
Okay.
Everything is compliant.
Now,
And we had, just to be clear, if anybody has questions, they were available all the time. We always had them. But we had not been asked to post them in that way.
and I think that's
But we were maintained.
and now in electronic age, that is the usual and customary way that most people would access them.
Right, and the town was not aware either that,
Okay.
that will that.
Right.
I was gonna say.
It was made aware, and
Yeah.
we more than happy to
Yeah.
anyone. And
Right.
we want people to read those minutes.
Right,
We
right.
want them to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think that since that's happened, it's actually been better.
Okay.
So I think I think
Okay.
that's a good step forward for us.
All right.
I do think that we are growing,
Right.
and we are continuing to seek volunteers to come in and fulfill some of these things for
Well,
us.
if I know of anyone, I'm going to send them your
Yeah,
way.
so if anybody
All right.
if anyone would like to work on a website with us, that would be great. In the meantime, we've been fortunate to have other community resources, again, like Grafton Common,
Okay.
post publicly for us our minutes. So those are all available right now
Okay.
on Grafton Commons
Okay.
website. And without digging through the town's website, I know that they were officially posted to the town.
All
I
right.
received
So
word
CPAC
over.
then, ideally CPAC would want to double back with Candy LaValle, our town clerk, to identify a space on the webpage to
Right.
then officially
Right.
put as a repository and direct people to as a
Absolutely.
hyperlink. That would be
And
awesome.
we have Grafton CPAC 2019@gmail.com is our official email address, so we do receive email from the community at that address.
Okay.
It would be nice to have a website that's up and functioning that is maintained by current officers.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we all set with CPAC?
Yep.
For any other old business, everyone please say no.
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 All right.
No.
Donna, any other old business? Donna, you still there?
I'm still here, yes, and no, don't have any old business.
What was that last thing you
He
said?
doesn't have anything.
Okay, thank you. All right, new business. All right, although I think it was like the 27th or 28th deadline in January,
What?
between us, as far as the town
Turn
report,
it in March.
yeah, between us, that's not a drop dead date. It's all
Did
right.
you just
20,
say it's January 27th?
I think it was. Hold on a second.
That seems early.
It was part of the
Our
all
meeting.
town boards. Okay, 2019 annual report. No, I take that back. It's due Friday, February 7th.
Oh boy, an extra
Right.
week.
All right, it's part of our packet. So Cindy had mentioned, Arial font 12, et cetera, as far as the format of the.
I've done it numerous times.
Yep, and they used Community Preservation Committee as an example. But you know what? Even if you look at the loan report that I had penned back in '09, way back, that is on our webpage for Disability Commission. As an example, it's basically there's no budget line item. It's basically in paragraph form of what we did
Yeah.
in 2019.
Yeah.
So,
Few
who
bullets
wants to
were done.
tackle that? would you want to tackle that as clerk? Me, someone,
I'm
volunteer?
sorry, what did you say, Roger? I
To
didn't hear-
tackle writing the report.
Writing the report that will appear in the town report.
Oh, boy. Can we talk about that at the workshop?
It'll already be
This is gonna
due,
a
due by,
brief one,
it's due
'cause we
next
just
week.
started
Yeah.
in August,
Yeah, we've
so
got-
we really haven't done a lot. It's gonna be a very brief report, so I'll tackle it
Okay,
and,
You
I
can send
guess
it
you
out to
guys
me.
can edit
I'll,
it.
I'll help. Yeah.
Okay.
okay. All right, that's cool.
I mean, it's not gonna be,
Yeah, one
it's
of the,
gonna be like one paragraph.
Four, like, one paragraph for
you
each
know what
one.
though, I will say this.
Unless you wanna tackle it, Raj.
I mean, is that an invitation?
You
I-
know me, I'm not gonna be overly wordy. I'm
No,
gonna
what-
be succinct and to the
Yeah,
point.
that's,
Right, and if you look at the 2009 report, that was actually the first year, you know, and we did have some people in, so we, you know, you can get as wordy or not as
Yeah,
you like.
no, I mean, I have had to write them for school committee, and they were much bigger, so.
Okay. So do you mind doing that with
Oh,
Christie?
I hope I
Yeah,
don't have
we
to
can
do
do
it
that.
for charter commission. If I have to do it for them, I'm not doing it here. So,
Well, the Charter Commission, is that gone?
I
Like,
guess
is
it's kinda gone.
it defunct? So there is no
think we ever
committee
wrote
to
one. Anyway,
approve?
doesn't
that?
matter.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is that if you're okay to tackling the task along with Christie,
yeah, I'll help Daryl. I'm
Okay.
happy to help.
that would be great. Because you know I'll
Right.
go on and on and
You
on.
will, and that's why I'm
You know,
saying, I'll do it.
I saw the look.
Okay,
All right.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, yeah, next meeting, we already figured out,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah.
We
Motion
have the
to,
agenda planning already.
all right,
figured
motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
What time is it?
You have to vote.
I'll vote, Donna, said aye, Daryl,
Aye.
Catherine,
Aye.
Roger, aye, Christie,
Aye.
Missy.
Aye.
All right, motion to adjourn, approved, clear the motion carried.
Thanks, Donna.